The much-loved Subaru Forester, the cheapest car on test with an impressive array of active safety tech and the only car here with permanent all-wheel drive. The much-improved Honda CR-V, more stylish to look at and better to drive than its predecessor, enormous back seats and an incredibly flexible boot. The Holden Equinox, known elsewhere as the Chevrolet Equinox, the most powerful engine on test and suspension tuned right here in Australia. The Toyota RAV4, the newest car on test, the only petrol-electric hybrid, so easily the most fuel efficient, and also the cheapest car here to service. The Kia Sportage, sporty hatch-like design, equally sporty road manners and a class-leading 7-year warranty. The Nissan X-Trail, often billed as the world's most popular SUV, the biggest car on test, but let down by its slightly old-school infotainment system. The Renault Koleos shares a platform with the Nissan X-Trail, French-branded but Korean-made, probably the least well-known contender here. The Hyundai Tucson, narrowly the shortest car here, punchy 1.6 turbo engine and dual clutch gearbox, and recently updated with a more modern interior layout. The Mazda CX-5, the single most popular SUV in Australia, a typically sumptuous Mazda interior treatment, and with 420 Newton meters, the most torque-rich engine on test. The Volkswagen Tiguan, the most premium feeling interior here, a potent 162 kilowatt turbo engine, but also the most expensive car on test to both buy and maintain. So what do all these cars have in common? Well, they're all mid-sized SUVs, and moreover, 10 of the best and most popular in the class, which is why we've assembled them all here today for the ultimate CarAdvice mega test. So it goes without saying, if you're a prospective medium SUV buyer, you're not short of choice. And that's because just about every brand worth its salt is making a vehicle of this sort. And that really shouldn't surprise anybody when you consider that about 1 in 5 of all new vehicles sold in Australia this year has been a mid-sized SUV. Massive, massive growth. But if you're one of the growing number of people who want a car like this, how exactly do you decide which one is best for you?
Well, you let us do all the hard work. There's 10 SUVs here, 2 guys.
Yep, so sit down, strap in, let's get ready to roll. Righto, so we're about to hit the road for our drive loops, but a bit of housekeeping first of all. What are we looking for when we're determining what the best mid-sized SUV is? Well, family friendliness, first and foremost. How big is the boot? How good are the back seats? I want the best safety technology, obviously value for money and running costs, good infotainment, and a comfortable ride with good noise insulation. I think stuff like a punchy engine, sexy design, and real sportiness through corners are kind of garnish. They're nice to have, but they're not essential. But we're doing something a bit different with this video in terms of the way it's laid out.
You're going to be able to watch individual reviews instead of watching the entire video. So if you're only interested in the RAV4, for example, you can skip to the time code for the RAV4, or if you want to watch our reviews of each of the 10 SUVs here, you can watch the whole thing. So stay right where you are to see the time codes for each individual SUV.
Hit the road. So Paulie, 41,940. That makes this the cheapest car here. What is it?
I think
Subaru Forester.
Yeah, Subaru Forester. I think this is such good value for money. You are getting a huge interior. Like looking at you, you're tall. There is a panoramic roof here which normally eats into space. You almost fit another person above your head.
And look behind you, really spacious back seats. Yeah. One thing I've always loved about Foresters, and this is no exception, is because they're kind of bland on the outside, they've got these massive side windows. So looking out of this car, it's like a greenhouse. So kids, especially in the back, will love that. Really practically minded, and despite the fact that it's the cheapest car here, it doesn't really feel it inside. I mean, the company's gone to effort with some of the touch points. There's nice dimpled, sort of rubbery, squishy bits. Premium. It does have a premium feel. It is kind of information overload though. I counted earlier, 17 buttons on the steering wheel and then 2 paddle shifters.
There's 2 screens.
Yeah, so like a secondary info screen there, and that displays like your side view camera, and that one displays your other infotainment. That said though, that is a great screen. It's not just
so
big.
Fast.
And it's not, it's fast and it's crisp.
High resolution.
The resolution of it is fantastic. It loads really quickly, so big tick to that. All the safety is covered here. It's got the eyesight system, so it's all camera based, not radar based. which means that it's cheaper if you have a front-end collision. The lane assist, the lane keeping aid, the blind spot monitoring, the AEB, all that stuff is well and truly covered in this car.
Yep.
So for a family buyer, it just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
Subaru's also got a 5-year warranty now, which is good. One criticism has been the drivetrain. What are your thoughts?
I actually quite like the drivetrain. It isn't the world's fastest car, but continuously variable transmission.
It's a good CVT, right?
2.5 litre petrol engine, 136 odd kilowatts of power, constant all-wheel drive. It really is a good mix.
I think that's a real
handling
selling
and
point.
performance.
So the others are on demand. So, you know, you've got the front wheels doing the driving, and then when the computer brain senses slip, it sends torque to the rear axle. But this car, it's always driving all 4 wheels, which means a slight fuel economy in post, although this has not been anywhere near the most thirsty on test, give it credit for that. But it means surety and a kind of off-road ability that perhaps the others can't match. And you're right, the engine's not that inspiring, but it's fine, it does the job. For like a no-frills, no-nonsense, unpretentious, well-priced car, I think the Forester's a really tough thing to beat.
Servicing is a little more expensive, but the interval's at 12,500 kilometres.
Yeah, it's about 1,300
kilometres
for
so
3 years, right? So it's the second most expensive car here to service after that Volkswagen. But then again, it's also far cheaper than anything else.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got different drive modes here. X mode, which is Subaru's nomenclature for all their different drive modes.
Go and get muddy.
It can do all your torque control. It'll brake individual wheels. It does all the fun stuff that you'd expect it to be able to do. Honda CR-V. Aside from the RAV4, this is like one of the oldest SUV names on the market, right? It's been around for ages.
It has. It was one of the pioneers way back in the day in the sort of late 90s. And the Forester too, in fairness.
And RAV4. But the thing is with the CR-V, we often complain about the lower end of the range missing out on safety features and a lot of the stuff that you'd expect. But at this higher end, where we're talking about that $44,000 mark, this car is equipped with so much stuff. It has so much room inside as well. Why do they not sell more of these?
Well, it does pretty well, in fairness. I think it does that Honda thing great, which is, you know, Honda somehow packages its cars better than anybody. Like the Jazz has always been famous for that. But the back seats in this car are enormous. They fold super flat into the floor, so it becomes basically a giant station wagon when you're not using the back seats. You know, back row passengers get 2 USB points.
Oh, hold on, what about the doors? The doors open like 90 degrees.
90 degrees. Like the Forester's close to that, but this is the only car with 90-degree opening doors. So if you're getting like a child seat or something in, it's really easy. Like if you're buying an SUV for proper family use, it's far and away the best. Yeah. It's not even close.
And intuitive features. So we've got an infotainment system here. It's not the best thing in the world. The screen's not the biggest as well, so that is a little bit of a downside.
Middle of the pack, but it does have CarPlay and Android Auto, and it does have sat-nav powered by, it looks like a TomTom system, I could be wrong.
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But what I love here, when you put your indicator on, and there's a button as well, there's a camera attached to the left-hand wing mirror, brings up an image on the screen. Now, blind spot monitors are always a good thing, but in and around the city where you've got cyclists and other people sort of moving around in your blind spot, that thing is absolutely fantastic. Visibility out the cabin is good, including in the second row. The boot's massive.
The slight problem though, like, yes, I get it, the camera display from that to there is good, but it doesn't work on that side.
Yeah,
and
that's a
a
good
blind
point.
spot monitoring system will show you there if you're on a freeway, if there's something in your blind spot. So I still think, you know, that is a bit of an oversight. Every other car here has a conventional blind spot monitoring system, but it has all the other driver assistance tech, which is good. It's got a 1.5 litre turbo, petrol with 140 kilowatt and 240 Newton meters, which is all right. CVT though, look, CVTs are never great, but this one is a little bit...
I was about to say, I actually really like this one. Yeah, I think it works really well with the turbo
it's
petrol engine.
smooth, it's just not particularly snappy. Like, I feel like this engine has a bit of pep to give, and the CVT kind of takes 10% away from it.
But those things aside, the car itself is beautifully presented. There's a lovely interior
Looks
here.
good too. Nice big shoulders, big squat sort of stance. Big fan of this car. Kind of it gets forgotten a little bit, but it doesn't deserve to.
Servicing costs, is it expensive?
Middle of the pack, 5-year warranty now. It does have 10,000k servicing intervals though, so unless you're driving bugger all, it's a bit crap.
Yep, okay. Okay, so Honda CR-V. Impressed overall? Just a couple of things they could improve on.
The Holden Equinox has a lot of positives.
Yeah.
There are two things that really kill it in the sales race. One, it's a Holden, and at the moment Holden's brand is a bit on the nose.
Oh yeah.
And the Equinox is not the greatest looking car in the world.
Yeah,
Don't you
I
think?
know. Yeah, I completely agree, and that's shared with everyone. They all think it's quite unattractive. But let's focus on the positives. The
Yeah.
engine first, 2-litre turbo, 188 kilowatts of power. It's good, isn't it?
Watch this.
Holy dooly.
Right, it's good. It's like a little hot
Yeah.
hatch. It's the most powerful car here
good.
and the fastest. We did some V-Box testing earlier in the week
Yep.
and it was the quickest from memory. And the way it drives, so Holden's engineers have done a lot of tuning on it here to make it less American, so
Yep.
less soft and squishy and more firm and planted through corners, and it's quite good in the way it
Yep.
drives.
Well, can I put the speed into context? Only not that long ago, a Volkswagen Golf GTI was doing 0 to 100 in the 6-second region, right?
Yep.
This is doing it in high 6s, low 7s.
Really?
It is
Wow.
damn quick.
That is proper goal. I think Mark
Yeah.
6 Golf GTI was
Yeah.
7.1
Yeah,
or 7.2.
that's it.
So yeah, it's also got all-wheel drive like everything else here, but unique to this is you can actually decouple the rear axle
Yes,
entirely.
to save fuel and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, although it does get a bit torque steery and
Yep.
axle trampy
Yep.
and struggles a bit when you do that, so
Yep.
I probably wouldn't recommend it.
Infotainment's great. Apple CarPlay,
Yeah,
Android
it
Auto.
is. General Motors does a good infotainment, but gee, this cabin is plastic fantastic, isn't it? Like,
Yeah,
it's
there
not
are
the most
scratchy
sophisticated
surfaces.
setup.
They try and highlight it with this sort of soft touch stuff, but I do like the digital controls here, the little imagery,
That is
highlights, heated seats in the second row,
Yes.
shared with the CX-5.
Yes. Lots of room back there as well. Really good space. Power charging.
Yeah.
I think there's a power point back there.
Yeah, there's
right?
actually a power
Yeah,
point
yeah,
plus
which is
USB,
really cool.
plus 12 volt.
Big boot.
Yeah.
So again,
massive
this
boot.
is one of the bigger cars, and it shows on
Yep.
the inside. And you know, let's be honest, it's what, just over 46 grand
Yeah.
list price, so middle of the pack. But
Yep.
we have to be honest, no one in the world is paying that, are they?
Yeah, can I let you in on a secret? I recommended this car to my parents, and partly because they got this exact car, the LTZV, with all-wheel drive for 33 drive away with just 4,000 on the clock.
Are you kidding me?
So
really?
yeah, it is a bargain if you can get it at that price.
This is one of the great problems is, you know, we have to use list prices for consistency's
Yep.
sake, but be aware that there are some cars here
Yep.
that you'll get a deal on, and the Holden is one of them.
Yep.
It's a shame that it looks the way it does and that it's a bit daggy, because it's not even nearly as bad as you might
No.
think. It's actually quite
It's an
good.
all-rounder. One of the other negatives that we came across is the ride. It is good, but it is on the
Stiff.
firmer side.
Yep, it
yeah,
is,
and
it
that
is.
may get a little bit annoying. Obviously, you know, you don't have to get this particular variant with the bigger wheels, but that is something to
Price
keep
you
in
pay
mind.
for style, man.
Yeah.
So 5-year warranty, it's pretty cheap to service. It's about
Yep.
800 and something bucks for 3 years.
Yep.
So it's one of the cheapest cars here to service. It might even be second to the Toyota.
Yeah.
So value-wise, it's pretty hard to beat in the real world, and for just sheer space for money, yeah, lots to recommend it.
We're in the Toyota RAV4. Mike, what does TNGA mean?
Oh, you're testing me. Toyota New Global Architecture. And as we've experienced with the Camry and Corolla, that's a good thing, because this one drives so much better than the old one.
Yeah.
It's really quiet. The steering's quite good. The ride is comfortable, but the handling, it doesn't wallow around
Yep.
through corners like the old one did. It doesn't crash over sharp hits like the previous one did. It's a really good thing to get around in. Speed bump. What
Barely
speed
feel
bump, right?
Okay, so that means the RAV4 is greatly improved then in terms of its ride and handling. What about the packaging inside the cabin? I really like how premium some of these materials feel. I love that they're now putting a lot of tech into these cars. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto's coming at the end of the year as part of a free upgrade. The
Finally.
infotainment system is better. There's really not a
cabin.
lot to not like.
Lots of storage, really good, lots of storage options around. Big digital instrument display in front of me here.
Yep.
Nice big screen there with sat-nav and a great 360
Yep.
camera. So packaging surprisingly good for a hybrid.
Yeah, because normally batteries eat into space, right?
Well, they do, and this time, well, obviously the battery's in the floor, but
Yep.
there's also some components under the seats. And you've got heaps of legroom in the back, a really big boot, a spare wheel, and it's also got a pretty tricky hybrid system, Paulie, the way the all-wheel drive functions.
Yeah, that's right. So you have an internal combustion engine up the front, plus an electric motor up the front. Then on top of that, you have an electric motor at the rear. But the electric motor at the rear is for dynamic driving, and the one at the front's for efficient driving.
The idea of dynamic driving in a hybrid RAV4 kind of makes
it's a bit wrong. But it also means you don't have a driveline running down the centre of the car, which always eats into space with all-wheel drive
Not really any obvious hump here in the middle of the floor, which is always a bit of a bugbear. Fuel economy, the claim is 4.8 litres every 100.
Isn't that incredible?
And I drove home to South Yarra the other night, and that's about a 40k drive from here through your typical gridlock traffic. I averaged 5.3.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Bloody good.
The kids are going to love the second row because there is lots of room there. The only disappointing thing here, the roof doesn't extend all the way back, and there's also no heads-up display.
Quickly on the driving mode front, you've got Eco and Sport here that basically sharpens the throttle response and the gearing and things like that. EV mode for car parts, you can actually drive it in full electric mode at low speeds. And the trail mode as well, just for sort of light duty off-roading. Big fan of this car.
Yeah,
I reckon it's one of the best here. In fact, I'm getting a sneaking suspicion it's definitely going to be in contention. This car looks like it's the most hatch-like, the Kia Sportage, isn't it? It sort of has
a lot smaller than the others, doesn't it?
Well, it is. It's quite a small car. It's the same size as the Tucson, about 4.5 metres, but it's about 20 centimetres shorter than the biggest cars here. But it has that really kind of squat, sporty stance, the slim side windows, the big front end. There's a bit of Porsche in that front end, and obviously that translates though to being not quite as easy to see out of as some of the others. You feel a bit more hemmed in here.
Well, I mean, you've got the big upshots with Kia, so 7-year warranty, pretty cheap servicing. I think we're talking about $1,000 over 3 years.
For 15,000k intervals, and that's because it's unlike the Hyundai, it's running a more basic engine. 2.4 litre naturally aspirated petrol with a 6-speed auto.
So standard transmission.
Look, it's a little bit raucous and rough when you're really up it, but for your typical kind of driving that you do in this sort of car, it's probably more ideal. It's just a point and shoot basic no frills engine, which for a city runabout is kind of what you want.
Yes. So let's talk about rear leg room. It's not fantastic because it is a smaller car.
It's still okay, because what are you about? You're about 180 centimetres, so you fit.
About 185.
Yeah, right, undercoring it.
I do like the big glass panoramic roof. We've got a good infotainment system here with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. It is a button explosion though.
Yeah, so this new screen's really nice and crisp and beautifully integrated. It's not a floating tablet like a lot of people don't like. It's integrated in the fascia. There is a lot of buttons down here.
Heated and cooled seats, which is good. You have the self-parking feature. You have
wireless phone charging pad is under there.
Center differential lock as well for the all-wheel drive system. So it is sort of feature laden there, but the thing I find troubling is it's more expensive than the RAV4, and the RAV4 has some pretty space-age technology there.
It does, but it's still middle of the pack for price overall, and let's be honest, Kia's pretty generous with its deals. I've seen a few of these for sort of 42 drive away on the classifieds. I like the way this drives as well. Just like the Hyundai and the Holden, Kia employs engineers in Australia to do local testing.
And it shows.
And it does show, and it's got a really kind of nice balance. Because it's got that dynamic design, you can tell the engineers have tried to make it a bit sporty. It's a bit nimble, a bit agile, turns in beautifully, stays flat through corners, but it's never really stiff and firm and uncomfortable.
So let's just quickly touch on the safety tech. So it's got all the standard stuff, but I think this is probably the best car here in terms of its lane keeping functions. It can virtually steer itself around corners.
The Hyundai and Kia lane assist systems are fantastic. They're really good on that, and their radar cruise is really responsive. Like it picks up and doesn't just leave you kind of stranded there. The blind spot monitor is handy because it's not the easiest car to see out of on test, especially compared to something like that Forester. I think this is a car that's really, for me, it might even be the one I'd get just on the design though, because it's the least SUV-like SUV.
Well, it's different. It doesn't look like an SUV like the rest of them.
Yeah, I mean, as a family SUV, it's probably not the best, but if you're, a couple or some empty nesters, it's probably the best.
The most popular SUV in the world.
You're fond of trumpeting that line, aren't you?
Yeah, the Nissan X-Trail. It's $45,000 odd. It has probably the worst infotainment system here. Very basic interior, very scratchy. What do you think?
You know, I actually owned a previous Gen X-Trail, the second gen of the really boxy ones. I think it was T32 to get super nerdy, and it was awesome. I loved it. And Nissan's lost a bit of that style for me, but it's still super practical. It's a huge car, this one. Like metal for money, it's massive.
Yes, yeah, that's true actually. The second row is pretty spacious. We did comment though that the ride is incredibly firm for some reason.
It's a little bit busy and brittle, so if you're driving over a slightly pockmarked road, you feel things in this car that you don't feel in the others.
Yeah.
Which is surprising, because it's not a particularly dynamic car either. And that engine, 2.5 litre petrol, CVT, again, it's fine for just commuting, but it struggles a bit if you want something a bit more dynamic.
Yeah, that's true. And the other downside is 10,000 kilometre service intervals.
And the Koleos, which has the same engine, has 30,000 k intervals.
I don't understand that. How the hell
It's literally the same engine. How the hell does that work? I think Renault's gone too far in one direction and Nissan not far enough in the other.
As a result of that, though, you are paying not a great deal for servicing. I think it's around the $800 mark over 3 years.
True.
Nissan now does a 5-year warranty as well.
Yep, high time. Good on you, Nissan.
And look, if you were to put all that to one side, though, there's nothing wrong with it.
No, it's just fine. It's just a fine SUV. Like, it's well made. It's very basic inside, as you said, but it has all the equipment. It's not missing any of the active safety tech.
Yeah.
You know, they've fitted that along the line. I like this new steering wheel. It adds a bit of something. Massive inside, huge boot.
Dual floor boot as well.
Yeah, it's a good, honest car. It just kind of feels like it's a bit outclassed.
Yep. Yeah, it's just let down in a few different areas, and that gives you this result.
I think it's the oldest car on test. There's a new one not far around the corner, and it sort of feels reflective in the rear. That is good.
That is
just like the Mazda and the Equinox. Off-road. So it's got a locking mode, which is good. So it's center diff lock, and it's got on-demand all-wheel drive. And in my experience, Nissan's on-demand all-wheel drive systems are pretty good.
Yes, yeah, that's
true.
So
I think this one, and it has, you know what I also like about this car? If I had like a couple of really messy kids, I'd consider this just because it feels kind of disposable.
Yeah,
like if the kids trash your Tiguan,
you're not going to worry.
You'd be a bit dirty on it, and this car, you're like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, so what we're saying is, you know, it's not horrible, but it's certainly not the best here.
What I would say is I think this car makes more sense at its entry grade point. So it's sort of 30 to 35 grand, lower grade, few less specs, but metal for money is great.
Okay, Renault Koleos. French, but it has some Japanese influence. Can you explain?
By way of Korea.
Yes.
It's actually made in South Korea as part of the Samsung agreement with the Renault Nissan Alliance.
An X-Trail.
But it's based on an X-Trail from a French brand. It's a very confusing mix, but that's the international world we live in, I suppose.
Yes.
I guess the upside is, you know, if you're concerned about buying a French car because of perceived reliability issues, this is an Nissan X-Trail.
Hey,
you know, this thing's not going to break.
Well, the X-Trail is the best-selling SUV in the world. Yeah. So you're kind of picking a car that's already been put through the ringer.
But I kind of like what Renault's done with this in some ways. So the design, first of all, every panel except the roof is different, and it shows. I think it has a much more, you know, charismatic design language.
Yeah, but that line at the front.
Yeah, it's a bit fussy there. But overall, I like it. And the interior, look, there are some flaws that we'll touch on, but the company's made an effort. A big portrait-oriented screen.
Now,
you know, ambient light piping. They've gone to a bit of effort.
When you say flaws, let's just talk about the most ridiculous and stupid thing in the world that features on most Renaults. You would think that all cruise-related functions would be on the steering wheel.
Cruise control,
Yes, but to switch cruise control on, you need to go here to under the park brake, flick a switch, or put the limiter on, and then you go to the steering wheel and you fiddle with things.
That is a bit dumb.
Your radio controls are buried like behind the wheel in some weird cluster.
True.
The screen is...
It's big.
It's big, but the Bluetooth drops out randomly. It sort of has glitches. The screen is a bit tricky to use on the move.
Well, to change like fan speed and stuff, you have to dig through some menus. Look, there are clearly some flaws below the surface. I think on initial impression, this car makes a really good one because it's not that expensive,
it looks
really.
sexy,
It looks sexy, it's French, it's roomy, and it does have really good back seats.
Yes.
Tons of space, USBs. I love the ambient light piping that you can change the colours of, because that's the sort of thing that Mercedes-Benz is.
Cracking sound system.
Anyway, so it's got the same 2.5 litre Atmo engine and CVT as the X-Trail, not the most inspiring drive
126 kilowatts of power.
Yeah, not a lot. And look, it's a big car, this, and so, it's not like it's slow, but it's certainly not,
You're not going to win any races in this.
No,
by
and
any
its
stretch.
ride is a little bit terse and fidgety. It's interesting that this is on 18-inch wheels, but the MY19 update has 19-inch wheels.
Right.
The only change. So we're actually driving a car with 1-inch smaller wheels than it's supposed to have, which would make a difference to the ride.
Well, size does make a difference when it comes to SUVs because the X-Trail that this is based on rides like a Formula One car. It's kind of got no real balance to it.
Every single tiny hit.
Okay, so those weird things aside, you're actually getting a lot of features. You've got self-parking. This also does diagonal. It does exit. So you can do a lot of cool stuff there. Heated and cooled seats, as we discovered.
Good Bose sound system.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real all-rounder, and it is vanilla in that sense, but
I think you know who's going to buy this car? Somebody who doesn't want an X-Trail like everybody else on the street, but they want something they can trust, and it's got a bit of something about it. It's French, it's a Renault, very few people have it. It's the least popular car here, so it has exclusivity on its side. Pretty vanilla car in a lot of ways, but I do understand why people might buy it.
Okay, so Renault Koleos, not offensive.
Oh, I should also mention 5-year warranty,
yes,
which people may not be aware of, and it also has cap price servicing for a couple of years too.
Hyundai Tucson, it's a bit of a staple in this segment, but it's got something that I'm not really a huge fan of.
I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, it's not the 1.6 litre turbo petrol engine. That thing's not bad. It's something that you managed to overheat yesterday. Doing what exactly?
Stopping and starting in the car park on a semi-regular basis, trying to overheat the transmission fluid, which I managed to do. Look, I'm not a huge hater of double clutch gearboxes, but I know that they're not popular. And you probably have some more grievances with than I do, but it's certainly true that it's not the smoothest thing around town, is it?
Yeah, it feels a generation behind the Volkswagen one.
Yeah.
And the Volkswagen one is better, but I'm personally not a fan of them.
I don't think they're necessary in a car like this. A bit glitchy, a bit sort of, The engine's good though, the 1.6 turbo,
that's a shame, isn't it?
Lots of torque, 265 Newton meters of torque, right from just off the idle point, so really good rolling response and muscular. In that sense, there is a diesel too, which I quite like in this car. Yeah, the diesel, the 2-litre diesel is great. Otherwise, though, it's a pretty good thing to drive. It's got the Aussie suspension tune. So Hyundai has a team in Sydney that does all the suspension calibration.
Kia, Holden. I mean, it's a bit of a trend, isn't it?
And it shows. I mean, this car drives beautifully, dude. It sort of rolls over hits like they're not there. Good body control, nice sort of... The steering's a bit too heavy and resistant for my liking, but that's really a personal preference thing. Dynamically, it feels kind of hatch-like, more than SUV-like.
I know, you wouldn't expect that. Now, in terms of space inside the cabin, the rear's okay, it's not amazing. But what we did find with the boot was there's a handy feature beneath the cargo floor. We've also got a full-size spare. Why is that so important for SUVs?
Well, I mean, technically people buy these with the idea that maybe they'll go off the beaten path someday, right? Maybe. Well, yeah, but maybe. You sell them the dream. But having a full-size spare gives you that option. Yeah. You know, for a can of goo, if you get a sidewall blowout, it's useless. And a space-saver spare's fine, but not ideal. So credit to Hyundai for that. I'll also give it a pointer to the new display that they've got going on here. So it's got a new interior as part of the update that's really sort of freshened it. It's got that floating tablet screen.
8 inches.
Yeah, it has all the tech, you know. You've got a wireless phone charger down there, which is great.
That's cool.
Some nice soft dash padding and some decent material quality. It really livens up the cabin, which used to be a bit sort of drib and drab. Very sombre though, like there's not a lot of colours in here.
It doesn't feel as nice as the Kia, just in terms of the presentation.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
But look, the other thing worth pointing out there as well, so drive modes, you've got Eco, Sport, you know, standard sort of stuff. But there are a couple of cool features. So there's air-conditioned seats, so they'll pump air through the seats, which is great for hot days. But also a heated steering wheel, which is kind of cool. Yeah. It's kind of fun. The other great feature as well, which is unique to this segment, is Auto Link Premium, which is Hyundai's version of, I guess, connected drive that BMW has. You can connect to the car remotely using your phone over the air. You can remotely start the car, check service intervals, lock and unlock the car. it is like space age tech in a segment that really is just
Well, it's the only car
affordable.
pretty much in this test that has that, right?
Yeah.
So that's a real selling point.
$46,000. You know, you're getting a couple of bits and pieces, cheap to service, 5-year warranty as well, which Hyundai's
Yeah,
popular for.
buy your upfront service package for about $850 for 3 services.
That's not bad.
Look, I think end of the day, this car for me, it's a classic middle of the road car,
Yeah.
right? Inoffensive, does a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
Doesn't really inspire particularly. Just a victim of how good some of its rivals are more than anything else. But look, just a fine offering, really.
There you go, Hyundai Tucson.
Righto, Marich. We're driving the most popular mid-sized SUV in the country, and it has been for a while.
Yes.
The Mazda CX-5. What are your impressions?
Okay, so I know why people like it. It feels nice and all that
does.
sort of stuff, but
The seats, they're so smooth. It's like
they
Napa leather, you got real wood inserts.
yeah, Mazda does that
The
stuff well.
detail stuff is good, right?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
that precision, the sort of detail and all the bits and pieces you expect from a premium car. But $50,000, this now has the engine from the CX-9, makes it
Yeah.
170 kilowatts of power, 2.5 litre turbo
It's not
petrol.
just the power, it's the 420 newton meters of torque,
Oh,
which
balls.
is obscenely large amount of torque for
Yeah.
a petrol engine. That's heaps.
It is heaps, and so is the weight. It weighs about the same, if not a little more than the RAV4.
Which has all that complicated hybrid
Yeah.
stuff that adds weight. Yeah, yeah.
So the problem with that is that it kind of affects the handling because the CX-5 rides beautifully. Yep, there's no, it's notwithstanding.
Good NVH. We used to criticise
Yeah.
Mazdas for being really loud, like road noise and wind noise,
Yeah.
but they've really gotten rid of that with this car.
But the problem is with all that power, it kind of gives it a bit of torque steer, which is where the steering wheel gets a little wiggly as you're sort of accelerating.
You
and
kick back through the
dictates-
rack over mid-corner bumps
Yep.
as well, and I noticed, yeah.
Through the corners, it can be a little sloppy at times. And you look at stuff around the cabin here, such as the infotainment system, that screen's tiny. Sure, it comes with Apple CarPlay now, which is great news, but it's using NZD Connect, the old version, and it's an issue because the new Mazda 3 is much better, right?
Well, that was the thing. Like, spending time recently in the new Mazda 3, that cabin is a revelation. It's such a good interior, and this car is let down because it's not that.
Yeah.
Even little things like where this plastic ridge
Look at
joins
this,
that
like-
wood. It's, I don't know, it's not quite there.
Yeah, I noticed that before. The build quality isn't amazing in the cabin.
What about the back seats? We've always criticised the CX-5 for not being the most spacious, and this is sort of, yeah.
This isn't great. So part of our testing here has been me jumping in behind your seat. You
Yeah.
put it in your normal position. Yes, you are taller, but it gives us a benchmark because in each
That's
car
right.
you're setting it to your position.
That's right.
In this, my knees are hard into your back, and I know
Yeah,
you
if
don't
you just
like
like
that.
kick your, no, if you kick your knees a little bit, it's quite good actually. It works out lots.
So it's like a massage seat without the intention of a massage seat.
To its credit though, the back seats don't just have USBs, they've also
Yep.
got heating, rear seat
Yes,
heating.
yes.
There's only one other car in test with that. Off the
Yeah,
top of
the
my head, I can't
Equinox.
recall. The Equinox,
Yep.
yeah. So that's a good feature. The boot's pretty small, as we've learned.
Yep.
Clearly, that doesn't matter to a lot of people because they sell more than
Yeah.
2,000 of these every month.
Absolutely.
And like you said before, like it has a lot of good points. You get in this car and it's got the showroom factor. It's got the beautiful soft leather and lighting, and it's a lovely looking car on the outside. Really potent, powerful engine. But
Is it
yeah.
expensive to service and run?
No, it's it's sort of middle of the pack. It's the 5-year warranty. They've got the annual service intervals, but with 10,000 k, distance. The service pricing isn't unreasonable. It's certainly nowhere as expensive as the Tiguan to service.
Yep.
And I really feel like this, alongside the Volkswagen, is trying to be that kind of cut above in terms of its
Yeah,
feel.
okay.
It's just feeling its age a bit now, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, look, I agree with that. So that's
Middle
the
of
thing.
the pack for mine.
Yep,
Yeah.
I'm completely with you there. Despite how many they sell, there could be smarter options out there.
Yeah. Righto, Marich, Volkswagen Tiguan. This
Yeah.
car, for me, is a bit of an exercise in extremes because in a lot of ways, it's the best car here, but it's also far and away the most expensive car here. It's about 50 grand before on roads, but then it's got a bunch of options. So there's a package called Sound and Vision that
Yes.
gives you the big instruments in front of you and 360 cam and some other tech. There's the R-Line package that gives it those big wheels and
Yep.
makes it look great. And of course, the sunroof is also an option, and it's standard on most of
Yep.
the others. So it's just shy of 60 grand before on roads. as tested, which is about 16 grand more than that Forester. So yeah, Volkswagen might be a semi-premium brand, but that's a real premium price, isn't it?
Oh yeah, and the interior doesn't feel all that premium to me. It's sort of, it's okay, but a lot of scratchy stuff around the place, and for 60 grand, I personally wouldn't be buying this thing.
I think the tech, I mean, the fact that, you know, the big digital instruments are pilfered from Audi, it's got this beautiful big screen with gesture control and all of your, I know that's a bit naff, but it's kind of cool at the same time. Big Dyne audio sound system. I do think this interior probably feels the most upmarket and resolved on test.
Yep.
You know, these seats are really super comfy. I like the back seats too.
Yeah, they're not too bad. Yeah, it's very dark and black in here. It's not very inspiring,
isn't it?
With this screen, what I don't like is there's no knobs for the volume. It has gesture control, which works okay sometimes, but it's one of those useless features you'll probably never use.
Let's get to the drive. I really think this car, again, it drives really, really well. 162 kilowatt turbo petrol from the Golf GTI. It's been scaled up in the Golf GTI, but it's fundamentally the same engine. 7-speed DSG gearbox, which once you're up and running is fantastic.
Yep.
Around town it can be a little bit kind of clunky. Made a few weird noises earlier on, but it's a lot smoother than they used to be.
Yep.
The 4Motion on-demand all-wheel drive system, but you got sport mode, individual mode, snow mode, off-road mode. There's a plethora of modes, which again is that sort of premium thing that this car's going for. And I think the NVH suppression is pretty good. It's quite quiet. It would be the fastest car here?
No,
Wasn't
Equinox was quicker.
Really? What was the servicing cost, mate? It was pretty pricey, right?
It's outrageously expensive. So $1,700 over 3 years, and while they are 15,000 kilometre intervals, that's almost double the price. In fact, it is at least double the price of a lot of the cars.
It's almost triple the price of the RAV4.
Yeah.
So, you know, Volkswagen, again, it's expensive to buy and maintain, so you pay for the privilege. Really great car, but in this field where value is a really important part of it, I'm not sure if it stacks up there.
Mate, what a massive couple of days. And when I say a couple of days, I actually mean a week, because behind the scenes, there's a whole bunch of other stuff going on. But we have a winner. Before we get to that, let's just run through the pack and have a quick chat about what we came up with. So there's no bad SUVs here. If you bought one that isn't here or one that isn't our winner, you wouldn't be disappointed. But we'll start over with Renault Koleos. What do you reckon about that?
Look, it's not bad. It's a little bit kind of, I guess, vanilla, for lack of a better word. I don't mind the design. They've made it.
Vanilla, though.
It's made an effort with the interior, which I appreciate. It's a bit more rounded than that Nissan X-Trail twin under the skin, but a bit uninspiring, I would say.
Okay, what about Japan? When we go to Subaru with the Forester, it's a bit of a surprise package, isn't it?
It is. I mean, I think it's a bit underappreciated in some ways, and a lot of people are unhappy that, you know, Subaru's ditched the turbo engine, but it's still so good. It's practical, it's got all the safety kit, and it's by far and away the best value car here.
Yep, $60,000. That's what that Tiguan's going to cost, and to me, it just doesn't seem worth it.
Yeah, look, in a lot of ways it's the best car here, and you know, to its credit, it is just over 50 list before the options, but those options are there, and yeah, it's a premium vehicle, but is it that much more premium? Is it 18 grand more than the Forester premium? I'm not so sure.
What about the Koreans? Kia Sportage, Hyundai Tucson, they're kind of similar under the skin, but they're so different in terms of their package.
Yeah, the Tucson's biggest flaw for me is the drivetrain. I think, you know, it's got that turbo engine and the dual clutch gearbox, and it just doesn't quite feel resolved to me. I think the diesel version is a better bet, and it is starting to feel its age inside just a little bit. What do you think about the Kia?
The Kia is an interesting one because I'm value conscious. My wife might say I'm a tight ass, but value conscious is where I'm at. 7-year warranty, cheap to service. It's got a naturally aspirated engine, a normal gearbox. It kind of just does everything right, and I love the look of it.
Yeah, not the best in terms of packaging, but it has a lot of really good attributes. What else haven't we covered yet? Well, we've got the Honda CR-V, which for me is kind of a bit of a quiet achiever. You know, it's got a relatively nice engine. The CVT is a bit uninspiring, let's be honest, like most CVTs are, but huge rear seat space, massive glove box, you know, bulletproof, good warranty these days. Just as a basic no-frills family SUV, it's a pretty good bet.
All right, let's get to the two, how should I say this, slightly more boring options in this segment.
Harsh.
Yeah, but true. Holden Equinox, it's not going to win any design awards anytime soon, is it?
Not the best looking thing, but that engine, 188 kilowatts of punch, I think it was the fastest car here, right?
Yep, absolutely.
It just hammers, and the guys, the Holden engineers at Lang Lang have done a lot of tuning, so it actually drives okay.
Heated seats in the rear as well,
yeah,
which is quite cool.
but just the looks of it.
Yeah, it's not great. X-Trail, it is the best-selling SUV in the world, but I have no idea why, because it has the worst infotainment system. It's just really firm on the road for some reason.
Yeah.
It just doesn't really excel in any particular way, does it?
I think the X-Trail makes a lot of sense when you're talking about the base one for like 28 grand, no frills, totally fine. But once you start playing in this more expensive end of the market, maybe not.
Yep, now the other car with a cracking engine here is the CX-5. I wasn't really sold on the engine. I felt it was a little too much for the chassis. Very sort of old infotainment system in the car. Do you reckon it has enough positive attributes to overcome that?
It's got a lot of polish, beautiful soft seats, you know, that typical Mazda design inside. It's the most popular car here, and I can see why. I just feel like it's now middle of the pack, and it's come down a little bit in my estimation.
That leaves us with just the one SUV left, and it is the winner of our medium SUV mega test. It's the all-new Toyota RAV4.
Well, Paulie, I think Toyota's turnaround in recent times has been a bit of a miracle. We're so used to the company just churning out white goods on wheels, but the last few models it's launched have knocked it out of the park. What is it about the RAV4 that you liked?
Look, it is just so different to the last generations of RAV4. It's just so much more interesting. The old RAV4s were a little boring. The V6 in the previous generation was slightly lethal. This, on the other hand, brings tech, lots of features, cheap servicing, and it's excellent to drive.
And that hybrid drivetrain, it's more efficient than a diesel. 5.3 litres every 100 k's is what I got on my loop. Really comfortable and quiet and refined. It just ticks every box. There's nothing that it really does badly. For me, it's been a little bit of a revelation.
Yep, and you're getting so much value for money because the hybrid drivetrain alone, that tech is it's just worth so much more than this price.
It's going to save you a few grand in fuel bills over the years. There's really nothing not to like.
Okay, the question that's burning here, where's the Ford Escape? What about the other SUVs that are missing?
Yeah, well, we haven't covered the entire field, it's true. The Ford Escape, there's a brand new one not far away, so I thought, hey, let's just wait until that arrives and see and benchmark it against, well, probably the RAV4. The Mitsubishi Outlander is the one I really wanted here. Unfortunately, for a few reasons, the company couldn't offer us one, so it's not here. There are a few more niche offerings that aren't available. The Peugeot 3008 comes to mind, but look, that's a small volume car, and we thought, hey, we've got to draw the line somewhere, dude. 10 is probably enough to handle. So, and just so, you know, just to put it into context, this is about 85% of sales in the segment, so I think we've covered the guts of it.
Yep, absolutely. To read the full comparison, head to CarAdvice.com. Don't forget to subscribe and also hit that bell button to get notifications when we post new videos.